You know, in the NFL, a team's identity is usually locked into one city, right? You think of the Packers in Green Bay, the Saints in New Orleans. It's just how it is. But what happens when a team's story is literally split between two different cities 800 miles apart? Well, that is the surprisingly wild history of the Tennessee Titans. So when you see the Titans today, this is the logo you think of. And it's pure Nashville, right? You've got the 3 stars for the 3 grand divisions of Tennessee. The T is shaped like a sword, and that trail of flames, that's a nod to the mythological Titans. It feels like it's been rooted in Music City forever.
But here's the thing. That logo, that's really only half the story. Because for the first 37 years of its existence, this franchise had a totally different name, a different logo, and a completely different home. Which brings us to the big question. How on earth did a team that feels so Tennessee actually get its start all the way down in Houston, Texas?
To answer that, we have to rewind the clock. I mean, way back. We're going back to 1959 and the birth of the team then known as the Houston Oilers.
Now, the Oilers were one of the original teams in the old American Football League, and man, they came out of the gate on fire. They won the first 2 AFL championships with the Hall of Famer George Blanda at quarterback. A couple decades later, they drafted the legendary Earl Campbell, which kicked off this whole beloved Love You Blue era. And then in the late 80s, Warren Moon comes along and leads them to 7 straight playoff appearances. You see the pattern here, right? They were always good, a lot of times they were great, but they could just never ever get over the hump.
And that cycle of almost but not quite reached its absolute gut-wrenching peak in the 1993 playoffs. I mean, just look at this. They were up on the Buffalo Bills by 32 points in the 3rd quarter, and they lost 41-38 in overtime. To this day, it's still the biggest blown lead in NFL playoff history, and for a lot of people in Houston, that felt like the end of everything.
That crazy collapse wasn't the final nail in the coffin, but let's just say the coffin was being built. The whole relationship between the team and the city of Houston was falling apart, and it led to one of the absolute weirdest relocations in the history of sports.
So after the 95 season, the owner, Bud Adams, makes it official. He's moving the team to Tennessee. Awesome. Except for one tiny problem. Nashville didn't have an NFL stadium ready for them, so the team literally packed up and moved with nowhere to play. And this kicked off a 2-year period where the franchise was just in total limbo. Get this, in 1997, they were based in Nashville, but they had to commute to Memphis to play their home games. Yeah, that went about as well as you'd expect. Some of those games had the smallest crowds in modern NFL history. The very next year, 1998, they played their home games at Vanderbilt University's College Stadium. And the whole time, they were still called the Tennessee Oilers. They were a team without a real home, a real name, or really any fans. And this uniform right here, it really just captures that whole awkward, in-between phase perfectly. You can literally see the evolution happening, from the old Oilers colors to what would become the new Titans branding. This was a team completely stuck between 2 different worlds. But then, in 1999, everything changed. I mean, everything. The stadium was finally ready, that awkward Oilers name was gone, and with a brand new identity came one of the most unforgettable, unbelievable seasons in the history of the NFL. First things first, the team was officially rebranded as the Tennessee Titans. And this wasn't just some name they pulled out of a hat. No, it was picked specifically because Nashville is known as the Athens of the South, for all its classical architecture and its universities. The name gave the team an instant, powerful connection to its new home. And in their very first playoff game as the Titans, they gave their new city an absolute miracle. Okay, picture this. 16 seconds left, they're down by 1 against the Bills. On the kickoff, the tight end, Frank Wycheck, throws a lateral all the way across the field to Kevin Dyson. Dyson catches it and just goes. 75 yards, totally untouched for the game-winning touchdown. It's still one of the most insane plays anybody has ever seen. And that single play, the Music City Miracle, it wasn't just a win. It was a bolt of lightning. It was the catalyst that launched the brand new Titans on this incredible, totally unexpected run, all the way to Super Bowl XXXIV. So here they are. After all those years of frustration in Houston, after 2 years of being homeless, they're in the Super Bowl. And of course, it all comes down to one final play against the St. Louis Rams. They've got the ball on the 10-yard line, with just 6 seconds left on the clock. The quarterback, Steve McNair, throws to Kevin Dyson, the hero from the miracle play. He catches it. He's reaching for the end zone, and he gets tackled at the goal line. They were 1 yard short. A miracle run ends in the most agonizing way you could possibly imagine.
But you know what? That incredible heartbreak didn't define them. It didn't break them. Instead, it became the foundation for a whole new legacy in Tennessee, one that was built on pure toughness and a punishing run game.
And this stat right here, this is something no other team in the NFL can say. They're the only franchise in league history with 2 different running backs to rush for over 2,000 yards in a single season. First, you had the electrifying Chris Johnson, and then the unstoppable force known as King Derrick Henry. This became their new identity, just pure physical power.
And that power-running identity, it fueled a really long stretch of success under coach Mike Vrabel. I mean, from 2018 to 2023, they were consistently one of the toughest outs in the league. They rattled off 6 straight winning seasons, made 4 trips to the playoffs, and even got all the way to the AFC Championship game in 2019. They truly cemented their place in Nashville before, recently entering a new rebuilding phase.
So, when you look back at the entire journey, from championships in Houston to a miracle in Nashville, from the absolute heartbreak of coming up 1 yard short to the sheer dominance of 2 2,000-yard rushers, it's a story unlike any other in sports. It really makes you wonder, after a tale of 2 cities and a legacy of such extremes, what in the world is going to define the next chapter for the Tennessee Titans?